Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And in today's deep dive, we're tackling one of the most fascinating stories in crypto, how AFX survived the 2024 crash. If you've been in the AFX community for a while, you already know what I'm talking about. That period when the market collapsed, investors panicked, and dozens of AI tokens disappeared overnight. Yet somehow, AFX managed not only to hold on, but to rebuild stronger. Today, we're breaking down exactly how that happened, from investor psychology to the ecosystem's resilience, and what lessons we can learn moving forward. So first, let's rewind to late 2024. The crypto market was brutal. Liquidity dried up, exchanges tightened compliance, and AI projects that once promised the world suddenly went silent. Tokens that were worth dollars dropped to mere cents. Communities fractured. But in the middle of all that chaos, AFX did something different. It stayed. The project didn't vanish, didn't delete its pages, and didn't abandon its holders. That might sound small, but in the crypto world, consistency is everything. So why did AFX survive? Let's start with the first factor, structure. From the beginning, AFX was never designed as a get-rich-quick project. It was designed around an ecosystem model that integrated AI, staking, and smart trading infrastructure. That gave it utility, not just speculation. When the hype faded, the fundamentals remained. While other projects were collapsing under the weight of unrealistic promises, AFX had a clear roadmap. The AFX ecosystem was built step by step, not through sudden pumps. Now, the second reason AFX survived comes down to something most investors overlook: psychology. When a crash happens, panic takes over. The majority of people sell, not because they have facts, but because of fear. It's a basic human instinct. When uncertainty rises, people run toward safety. But here's where AFX's community stood out. The holders didn't behave like a panicked retail crowd. Instead, the core supporters of the ecosystem held firm. They communicated, they educated, they reminded each other of the bigger vision. That's extremely rare in crypto. Usually when prices fall, communities vanish. But AFX's community kept the conversation alive, and that sense of unity was the backbone that stopped the token from spiraling. Now let's talk about leadership. One of the biggest reasons AFX held steady was because the team didn't hide. They continued updating, communicating, and hosting community discussions. When everyone expected silence, AFX released updates on development, shared progress on the upcoming 3.0 expansion, and addressed questions about staking and listings. That consistency rebuilt confidence. Think about it. When fear is at its peak, the only thing that restores trust is transparency, and that's exactly what they delivered. But the psychology behind this goes deeper. Investors who survive market crashes tend to share one thing in common. They understand long-term narratives. The people who sold at the bottom focused on short-term charts. The ones who held through it focused on ecosystem utility. And AFX has that in abundance. It's not just a token, it's a technology platform. It's tied to AI trading models, data analytics, and future staking programs. That's why the holders who understood that didn't panic. They saw the long-term value beyond the short-term volatility. Now let's analyze what actually happened during that period. In 24, when AFX's price fell below the $20, social media started filling with doubt. Traders moved out of smaller caps into safer assets like stablecoins. But rather than letting the price crash further, something unique happened. Accumulation started quietly. People who had researched the project began buying more. Some even saw the drop as an opportunity to increase their holdings. That behavior, steady accumulation during fear, is what formed the foundation of the recovery we're seeing now. When you think about it, it's kind of poetic. While the majority sold, the believers accumulated. When the market flipped, the patient ones were rewarded. And that brings us to an important psychological truth. In crypto, wealth is transferred from the impatient to the patient. But beyond psychology, AFX's ecosystem design made it more resilient. Its staking model reduced selling pressure because holders were incentivized to lock their tokens instead of dumping them. The AI trading algorithms created consistent engagement, and the roadmap promised future integrations. That combination meant the ecosystem kept moving even when the price slowed down. And let's not forget about community communication. During the crash, AFX's Telegram channels and global leader groups stayed active. Instead of rumors, members were sharing verified updates. Instead of negativity, they focused on education. How to stake, how to follow legitimate sources, how to understand market cycles. That kind of collective discipline is what separates a long-term ecosystem from a temporary project. Another big part of why AFX stayed relevant during the 2024 crash was the team's decision to focus on fundamentals instead of hype. They didn't rush new announcements to inflate the price. They focused on development. When a project prioritizes delivery over marketing, it sends a message. We're here to build, not to entertain. That's the mindset that long-term investors respect. Now let's zoom in on AI integration, because that's where things really started to shift for AFX. While other AI crypto projects were stuck in concept stages, AFX actually released working prototypes of their AI trading assistants. These models were capable of analyzing hundreds of market trends in real time. Even in a down market, that tech remained useful because traders still needed insights. AFX wasn't dependent on hype. It provided genuine value. And that value became the foundation for the comeback we're seeing now. By early 2020, the narrative had flipped. People started realizing that AFX had not only survived, it had grown stronger. The AI models became more refined. CEX listings expanded access, and the announcement of Staking 2.0 brought investors back into the fold. Let's talk about those listings for a second. During 2024, a lot of projects struggled to get listed. Exchanges were hesitant to take risks. But when AFX made it through that stage, it was a signal, not just to investors, but to the entire market, that AFX was legitimate and here to stay. AFX listings don't just increase liquidity, they validate the project. That trust opened the door for a new wave of investors in 2025. But here's something that not many people realize. AFX's recovery wasn't an accident. It was psychologically engineered through transparency and trust. Every time the community demanded updates, the team delivered. Every time people had doubts, they provided data. Slowly but surely, confidence returned, and the numbers reflected. Trading volume started increasing. Holder retention improved, and sentiment on social channels turned positive again. That kind of shift doesn't happen by chance. It happens when a project earns back its credibility. Now, what's really fascinating is what we can learn from this as investors. The 2024 crash was brutal, but it taught one universal truth. Only projects with real ecosystems survive. Tokens built around hype fade. Tokens built around technology and community endure. AFX belongs in the latter category, and that's why we're still talking about it today. So let's connect this back to investor psychology again. When prices crash, people often say, crypto is dead. But those moments are when innovation actually accelerates. Teams that survive bear markets are the ones that dominate bull markets. That's what's happening right now with AFX. The seeds planted during the 2024 crash are starting to grow in 2025. Let's not forget the bigger picture. AI adoption in finance is accelerating. AFX is perfectly positioned in that space. With machine learning-driven trading, staking pools, and the integration of decentralized AI tools, the ecosystem sits right where traditional finance meets AI innovation. That's why long-term investors are holding, not because of short-term hype, but because they see AFX aligning with the next phase of fintech evolution. So when you look back and wonder why AFX didn't collapse when others did, the answer is simple. It was a mix of strong fundamentals, community belief, transparent leadership, and investor patience. That's the formula for survival. Now that the dust has settled, AFX is in a better position than ever, with a stronger base, more active trading, new listings, and a renewed sense of direction through AFX 3.0. And the best part, the community is still growing. Every day, more people are learning, staking, and joining the conversation. That's how ecosystems thrive, through education and participation. If there's one message to take away from this, it's this. The 24 crash didn't destroy AFX. It defined it. It separated speculation from substance, hype from progress, and panic from patience. So as we move through 25 and beyond, AFX isn't just another token recovering from a dip. It's a case study in how real ecosystems are built, maintained, and strengthened through resilience. If you're still here, thank you for watching. Drop a comment below if you held AFX through the crash, or if you joined after and want to share your experience. And remember, markets move fast, but conviction moves further.